Find other great podcasts like this one at podmoth.network.
What's up, frickin' weirdos? My name is Kevin, and I'm the host of Where the Weird Ones Are podcast. This is a conversational podcast based on guest experiences and encounters with paranormal, cryptids, aliens, spirituality, mental health, as well as conspiracies. If these topics interest you, you can find me on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, as well as YouTube and Rumble. If you have an encounter or an experience of something that you can't quite explain, I would love to hear from you. You can reach out to me at wheretheweirdonesare@gmail.com, where_theweirdonesare on Instagram, and where the weird ones are on Facebook. I hope to hear from you, my friends. Question everything and stay weird.
Are you tired of this reality? Us too. How about once a week you take a break and visit a different reality? In Jack Billings Presents Haunted Apartment Complex, we bring you a comedy podcast full of ghosts, werewolves, gentle vampires, and Frankenstein monstrosities made of 72 people stitched together. And somehow, that's not even the strange stuff. A proud member of the Podmoth Network. Every Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts. There's nothing wrong with your audio. I've been a ghost this whole time. Shyamalan twist.
Welcome to the Brutal, Bizarre, and Boozy podcast. I'm Deklan, the son.
And I'm Jane, the mom. This is the podcast where we talk about brutal crimes, bizarre occurrences, and get you drunk with cocktails themed around one of our stories. To lighten things up, we'd like to end our time with a chaser. Please keep in mind some of our stories might be upsetting to young or sensitive ears.
We love hearing from our listeners, so feel free to contact us by email or social media. You can find our contact info in the show notes for this episode. If you'd like to support us through Patreon, you can find us there at Brutal, Bizarre, and Boozy podcast, or use the link in our show notes.
Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us once again for another episode of Brutal, Bizarre, and Boozy. How are you today, Mom?
I'm doing great. How are you, Declan?
I'm doing pretty good. What story do you have for us today?
Awesome. I'm going to be talking about the Colonial Parkway murders and some recent-ish developments.
But it's not a recent story.
No, the murders happened in the 80s, but a few years ago, some information came out about it. So we're going to talk about that. Yeah.
Okay.
What are you going to be telling us about?
I am going to be talking about Tiananmen Square.
Oh.
Yes. Very interesting.
Brutal.
To go with it, I have the Chinese Fizz.
Ugh.
To make this, you need 2 ounces of rum. This says Appleton Estate, but I didn't get that. 1/4 ounce maraschino liqueur, 1/4 ounce Cointreau, 1/2 ounce freshly squeezed lemon juice, 1/2 ounce simple syrup, 1/2 ounce of egg whites, 1/4 ounce of grenadine, and a dash of Angostura bitters. To make this, add all cocktail ingredients into a cocktail shaker and dry shake for about 30 seconds. Add some ice cubes and shake for another 20, and then strain into a ice cube filled fizz glass, which I don't know what that means, but
I don't know what a fizz glass is either.
Cup.
Yeah.
All right, let's give it a try.
I just
think
did a
this is
fun
gonna be
little
way
short
too
drink.
fucking sweet.
I think it's going to be gross because nothing that I've had with maraschino liqueur has been good. So I'm not
like
holding
it
out any hope.
sometimes, but with rum, I think it's going to be way too sweet. But let's give it a try.
Okay.
Yep,
Nope.
That's gross.
Nope. I was right.
Yeah.
Not a fan. Dislike highly.
Okay, yeah. We can dump that one down the drain. That wasn't good.
Yep. That's a drain drink for sure.
Yes. So let's talk about Tiananmen Square. In the spring of 1989 in Beijing, the capital of the most populous country on earth, bicycles crowd the avenues, loudspeakers crackle with official slogans about stability and prosperity. On paper, China is rising, reforming, opening to the new world, and experimenting with markets after decades of rigid Maoist control, which Mao was one of their
Leaders,
presidents,
right?
or whatever you call them. Yeah,
Right.
I don't.
Yeah. President.
Not much of a president in our
Dictator.
mind, but yeah.
Right. Of course, everybody, has their own opinion of politics and stuff.
Yes. I don't know much about Chinese politics, so I just know they're
I don't either.
vastly different than ours.
Yes, I believe
So-
it is.
Inflation was climbing, corruption was everywhere. Party elites were getting rich while students struggled to find jobs. Sounds like our nation.
Yeah.
Newspapers talk about modernization, yet speech is still watched, limited, and sometimes punished. And in the center of Beijing lies a vast slab of history called Tiananmen Square, a place built for celebration, parades, and the protection of state power. By early summer, it was becoming something else. It was a gathering place, a symbol, and eventually a battleground.
Oof. Not good.
To understand why tens of thousands, eventually hundreds of thousands of people would risk everything by occupying the political heart of China, you have to go back a few years. After Mao Zedong's death in 1976, China was exhausted. The cultural revolution had shattered education, trust, and entire families, and the economy lagged far behind compared to the West. A new leader, I'm going to fuck this up. Deng Xiaoping emerged with a different vision. China would remain under Communist Party control, but economically it would loosen the reins. Farms could sell surplus, businesses could open, foreign investments would come in. Some people, Deng famously said, would get rich first. And they did. Skylines changed, consumer goods appeared, universities reopened, students began reading Western philosophy, economics, political theory. They also debated democracy, reform, and accountability. But political openness did not grow at the same pace as the economical change. Criticism of the party still had limits. Calls for democracy could still be dangerous because they don't have free speech over there. So if you say the wrong
Right.
thing, you can get in
You
a lot of
might
trouble.
be dead.
Yeah.
I don't think I probably would do well over there because I kind of just keep my mouth shut all the time.
Yeah. I think about that sometimes, but I also don't want to be watched constantly, and
No.
you can't buy a house because you jaywalk too many times. Like,
Yeah, no, that's not what I mean. I'm just saying
Yeah.
free speech is really probably isn't an issue for me because I just keep my mouth shut all the time.
yeah, it's important though, because I think Britain's going through it
Absolutely.
a little bit. Like, people are getting arrested for tweets that they made that are just jokes
Yeah.
or like criticizing politics. But anyways, I'm going to try my best to stay out of it.
Yes.
So one of the most important reform-minded figures was a man named, I'm going to fuck this up again, sorry, Hu Yaobang, who believed corruption needed to be confronted. He thought intellectual debate should be tolerated. Students admired him. To many, he represented the possibility that China could evolve without violence. Hardliners, however, saw him as weak. In 1987, after earlier waves of student protest, Hu was faced to resign. 2 years later, on April 15th, 1989, Hu Yaobang died of a heart attack, and grief turned into sparks. Students began gathering in Tiananmen Square to mourn him. At first, it was about respect, but grief is powerful. Soon, mourning turned political. They spoke about corruption, about press freedom, about the right to participate in their own government. They demanded dialogue with party leaders, and more people kept arriving. University groups marched in columns. Workers began to watch and then join. Journalists, intellectuals, even some officials quietly sympathized with the protesters. Within days, Tiananmen Square was no longer a memorial, it was a movement. Tents began spreading across the stone plaza, banners hang from buses, megaphones passing from hand to hand, and debates that lasted all night. Students organized security, trash collection, medical stations. There were loudspeakers playing music and volunteers directing traffic. So it was a giant movement. Everyone's coming together to, hey, there's so many people protesting that they're like, if you need medical assistance, we have a little medical tent over there. Get your snacks, get your waters, all that stuff.
Yeah. Like it's a marathon.
Yeah, literally. It's like their protests are like a marathon. Ours, instead of putting little medical tents, we put stacks of bricks.
Yeah. Big difference.
So the leadership inside of Zhonghengbai, the party's heavily guarded compound, saw something else. They saw instability.
Yeah.
They saw the possibility of losing control in a country that, within living memory, had fractured into chaos and civil war. And they were divided about what to do. Some argued for patience and negotiation. Others believed that allowing mass protest in the symbolic center of China was a direct threat to communist rule. As days passed, the crowds only grew thicker. More people were upset about what was happening. So, along with these crowds, foreign journalists were in Beijing for an upcoming state visit from Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev. Cameras were meant to capture diplomatic ceremony, instead filmed enormous protests. So there's this Russian guy coming, and everyone's basically sitting right outside DC screaming about how much they hate their leadership. And so
it looks bad. It's a bad look.
Studies thought it looked pretty bad. So
I could see, it's like when you have company over to your house, you want everything to look nice. You don't want, your neighbor lighting off fireworks into your front yard with their, mess of a car that's parted out in front.
In 14 different parts in the front yard. Yeah. So on April 26th, an editorial appeared in the People's Daily, their official newspaper over there, which you think how manipulated news is here. I can't imagine what it is for the official newspaper of China.
It's I am sure
it's fictional.
It is only the message they want.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
So the newspaper labeled the protest as turmoil and labeled it dangerous, manipulated, and anti-party. To many students or people that were there, it felt like betrayal, but obviously it's a state-sponsored newspaper, so.
Yeah.
In mid-May, the students escalated their protest. They began a hunger strike, which, by the way, that's the dumbest fucking thing possible.
I would agree.
Who cares if
I don't think who
if
cares?
I don't like you, I don't care if you're hungry.
Exactly.
What the fuck is the point of that?
You're like, oh, okay.
Also in China, they're probably already on a hunger strike. They just had to pronounce it.
In comparison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Young men and women, some barely in their 20s, stood before cameras saying they were ready to sacrifice their lives for China's future.
Ooh.
The moral pressure on the government intensified. Then came one of the most haunting images of the entire movement. Art students erected a tall white statue in the square. They called it the goddess of democracy. She faced the portrait of Mao hanging over Tiananmen Gate, a silent conservation between past and possible future. On May 20th, martial law was declared. Troops began moving towards Beijing, but something unexpected happened. Residents blocked the roads.
Oh.
Buses were parked across highways. Workers talked to soldiers. Some pleaded, some argued, some screamed at them. And food and water were handed into military trucks. For a moment, it looked like the people might win. After weeks of protest, the occupation continued, but unity among protesters frayed. Some wanted to withdraw gracefully. Others believed leaving would waste all the work that they've done.
Right. I could see them thinking that.
Yeah. So, as all this was happening inside the government, decisions were reached, and So a decision was reached, and the square would be cleared. On the night of June 3rd, 1989, the operation began. Troops advanced in, and gunfire erupted in western Beijing. At first, many residents thought the shots were blanks or warnings, but they were wrong. Armored personnel carriers crushed barricades, buses burned, and civilians tried to pull the wounded to safety on bicycles and carts. So if you get hurt, you just gotta hope that you can hang on to the back of some dude on a bicycle.
Yeah, I don't think that's a good option.
No. So some leaders of the protests negotiated with military officers. Eventually, in the early hours of June 4th, many students were allowed to withdraw through corridors framed by troopers. So they're like,
okay,
you gotta.
They were allowing them to leave.
Yeah. We're gonna look at all of you and remember your faces for the next protest.
Ooh,
but
yeah, that's rough.
Yeah. So outside the square, there was also violence. And the exact numbers remain disputed to this day, but Chinese authorities later suggest a few hundred deaths, including soldiers as well. Other estimates from journalists, diplomats, and human rights groups range from several hundred to several thousand.
Oh,
so it's kind of hard to find the right information on it because it's
right
coming from the state.
Again,
but
it's the state-run newspaper who's like, no, nobody died. It was fine.
Yeah. So by morning, the square was under military control. All the tents were gone, all the banners removed, and the goddess of democracy was destroyed. The big statue that they had built.
Right.
The next day, June 5th, the world saw another image that would become eternal. A column of tanks rolled down Chongyang Avenue, and one man. This is, if you look up Tiananmen Square, you'd probably know the exact picture. But on a side note, apparently you're not allowed to look up Tiananmen Square in China. I don't know how accurate that is, but they've completely wiped it from their history books. Which, if you were the state, I think you'd want that in the history books to show, hey, we're going to fuck you up if you try and go against us. But what do I know? I'm not a political leader in China.
Well, but it might be better. They might be thinking it's better to not have people finding out information.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Try and cover up the protest all in itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense, I guess. But anyways,
not really.
So a row of tanks is rolling down the avenue, and one man carrying grocery bags stopped and stood in front of the tanks. He wore a normal white shirt, and they tried to move around him, and he just blocked him again. For a few minutes, an anonymous civilian held back an army of a superpower. Then he was pulled away by bystanders. No one knows who he was for certain, but that image is seared into the history of Tiananmen Square.
Yeah.
Inside China, a different story took shape. Arrests swept the city. Protest leaders went into hiding or fled abroad, which I can't imagine. if you run a protest, you have to flee the country for your life. Like,
Yeah.
that's-
I'm not running a
Yeah.
protest of anything if I'm worried about being able to live there. Be
yeah.
like, nah, I'm just going to keep my mouth shut.
Internationally, governments condemn the bloodshed. Sanctions were imposed, and diplomatic relations kind of relaxed for a little while. They're like, we don't want to fucking deal with you guys. But
Yeah.
over time, economic interests resumed their pull, and trade returned, and China's growth accelerated. The country entered the global system while keeping strict control over the narrative at home. And that is the story of Tiananmen Square.
Wow.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that the protest was so long. I thought it was like a couple of days. I didn't realize it was
I thought
weeks.
that too, but it sounds like they started to build their own city there, like right in the
Yeah.
square. We got
Right.
medical tents, we got sleeping bags, whatever you need. But
I would be
super weird.
curious to know like real information if anything changed after that protesting. Like today, is anything different there as a result?
I hear it's like not as bad as it used to be, like from like expats that go on podcasts or stuff. But
Western, yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It sounds like I would like to visit there, I think, but then again, you hear the horror stories of like, if you say
Yeah.
anything bad against China, like as a foreigner, they automatically arrest you or something like
Yeah,
that.
no, I'm
And so
not.
there's those stories, but then there's also ones of like, oh, everything's cool. I've been living in China
Yeah.
for 20 years, like as an expat, and
Yeah.
life is normal
I
here.
don't know.
So I don't know.
I don't
I
know.
don't know.
Interesting.
It gets scary. I get
Yeah.
scared of places where the First Amendment isn't there,
Yeah.
because I like to talk a lot
Same.
of shit, and I don't want to get in trouble for that.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, I was
It
a
was
joke. It was a
it was
joke.
all a joke. I didn't mean
I was
anything.
kidding. Yeah. Ooh. I don't know.
All right, let's hear this
Okay.
story, Mom.
You ready to hear about the Colonial Parkway murders?
Yes.
So I am going back to the 80s as well. This is October of 1986, which should have been just another fall on the Virginia Peninsula. Instead, it became the beginning of a mystery that would span decades and define the darkest chapter in their local criminal history. On the evening of October 9th, 1986, Kathy Thomas and her girlfriend, Rebecca Dowski, were last seen alive at the College of William and Mary campus. Kathy was 27 years old and was a recent graduate of the United States Naval Academy. She was known for her intelligence, compassion, and strong relationships with family and friends. Rebecca was 21 and a senior at William and Mary. She was pursuing a business degree, and she was remembered for her creativity, kindness, and love of music. 3 days later, a jogger along the Colonial Parkway discovered Kathy's car half off an embankment near an overlook. Inside of it, both women were dead. Their wrists were bound, they had been strangled, and their throats had been slashed.
In their car? Like in the driver and passenger seat?
They were,
like,
they were in the car, but the car was like not
hanging off a cliff.
It was
right?
off an embankment.
Okay.
The car and bodies were doused in diesel fuel in an attempt to set them ablaze. The Colonial Parkway.
What, his fucking lighter didn't work?
I guess not. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if diesel fuel doesn't.
I don't think it burns.
It's
normally.
not as flammable, or I honestly don't know. The Colonial Parkway is a 22-mile wooded road connecting Jamestown, Williamsburg, and Yorktown. The parkway was also a popular but isolated lover's lane frequented by young couples. At the time, investigators struggled to piece together what had happened to this couple on what should have been an ordinary night. the fact that their vehicle was discovered in a secluded area of Parkland would later become a chilling hallmark of the cases to follow. Because, spoiler, these weren't the only deaths. For nearly a year, the murders of Kathy and Rebecca remained isolated. It went unsolved that year and remained a frightening and unprecedented nightmare for southeastern Virginia. Then on September 20th, 1987, nearly one full year later, another pair of young people vanished under equally disturbing circumstances. David Nobling, age 20, and Robin Edwards, just 14, had been spending time with friends before planning to meet up later. They left Newport.
Let's.
Yeah.
20 and 14. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I heard that right. Okay.
You did hear that right. I tried looking into it a little bit. It's possible that they were just friends, like for real, just friends.
No.
Because they were meeting up with other people.
As a 20-year-old, you shouldn't be friends with a 14-year-old. That's not how that.
Agreed.
I don't care if it's completely. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Yes. There was some of the sources said they were a couple. Some said they were just friends and that he was driving her to meet other friends. So I don't know, like maybe family friend. I don't know. I tried to get to the bottom of it, but in the end I was like, does it really matter? Because unfortunately they're both dead.
Yeah. All right.
So.
Okay.
They left Newport News in David's pickup and crossed the James River Bridge toward a remote area known as Ragged Island Wildlife Refuge, choosing a sandy, out-of-the-way parking area to be alone. So, again, a 20-year-old should not be alone in a car with a 14-year-old near a lover's lane. That I would say don't do that. Yes. Days passed without word. Eventually, their bodies were found near the bank of the James River, washed ashore by the tide, about 100 feet apart from each other. Both had been executed, shot in the head, and Robin had been sexually assaulted. These killings bore an ominous resemblance to the earlier murders of Kathy and Rebecca. They were young lives taken early, and their vehicles were at isolated sites near water. Investigators began to suspect a pattern. Well, I really wonder, did they really suspect a pattern? Because I don't think in the
near
mid-80s.
water thing is like a stretch for me, I think.
Right. Especially there. Everywhere's near water because it's a coastal. Yeah. Whatever. Another disappearance occurred on March 8th, 1988, around 6 months after the deaths of David and Robin. Lori Ann Powell Compton was 18 years old. That night, she got in a fight with her boyfriend, Chris Cutler, while they had been in his car. Chris later reported that Lori had gotten out of his car and was last seen walking down State Route 614. Almost a month later, her body was found in the James River. She was found naked and had been stabbed several times. Then came April 10th, 1988, about 1 month after Lori had disappeared and just days after her body had been found. 20-year-old Richard Call, who went by Keith, and 18-year-old Cassandra Haley left a party in Newport News after midnight. The couple were on their first date. They disappeared on the way to Cassandra's home. Their red vehicle was later found abandoned near York River Overlook on the Colonial Parkway, only about a mile from where Kathy and Rebecca's car had been found. Those were the first two victims. No trace of Keith. What's that?
This story makes me think of like all the cars parked on the side of the road that have like the orange tag on the back. It's like,
yes,
how
and
many of those are like missing people, or how many of those are just like stolen cars or like whatever?
Yes.
But it kind of makes you think about how many times you've driven past those and you're like,
for sure.
Wonder what the story is for that.
Yeah, I'm not looking inside in case there's bodies in there. Although if there were bodies in there, there wouldn't just be an orange sticker on the side.
Although sometimes I drive by those, and if it's a nice enough car, I'm like, they're going to impound it anyways. No one's coming to claim it. What if I just took it?
Well, the fact that it's probably there because something happened.
Probably crime was committed in there or something.
Yeah. You don't want your fingerprints getting, on top of somebody else's. Keith and Cassandra's bodies were never found, but law enforcement and families alike believe they were taken and killed. Their disappearance remains officially tied to the Colonial Parkway murders. Another local death was not linked to the Parkway murders until decades later. On July 1st, 1989, 29-year-old Teresa Howell went missing after leaving a nightclub. Her body was found just a few hours later near a wooded area. She had been sexually assaulted and strangled. A few months later, on September 5th, 1989, 2 more young people vanished. Daniel Lauer was 21 and Anna Maria Phelps was 18. They were traveling from Amelia County toward Virginia Beach. Their car was spotted abandoned at a rest stop along Interstate 64. And I don't know what any of that means in comparison to the other locations because I don't live on the East Coast, but they're linking these all together, so they must be close to each other. Hunters later found their badly decomposed bodies off a nearby logging road. Anna Maria's remains showed evidence of stab wounds. Daniel's cause of death could not be conclusively determined due to the level of decomposition. By the end of 1989, at least 10 young lives had been lost or presumed lost in cases that shared chilling similarities. The murders and disappearances occurred along or near the Colonial Parkway and nearby backroads, often in settings without any streetlights and filled with thick woods, which is scary enough on its own.
Yeah.
But then you add the fact that people are turning up dead from those areas. No. I think I'll travel elsewhere. The perfect stage for predators is this kind of area, of course. For decades, law enforcement looked at leads, questioned suspects, and attempted to connect the dots among these murders. Families demanded answers. Communities lived with fear that a serial killer walked among them, which that is an understandable thought since a bunch of people are disappearing and ending up dead. Rumors and theories abounded, but no arrests were made and no definitive suspect emerged for many years. Advances in forensic science, particularly DNA technology, brought renewed hope in the 21st century. Investigators revisited evidence collected from the original cases, subjecting decades-old biological samples to methods unavailable when the crimes occurred. The late 80s, they're not doing a lot of DNA testing, I believe. I think that was early 90s that really gained some popularity. The hope that these would be solved began to crystallize in January 2024 when authorities announced a breakthrough. Modern DNA analysis conclusively linked at least 2 of the murders. The 1987 deaths of the second set of victims, David Nobling and Robin Edwards, would be tied to a single individual, Alan Wade Wilmer Sr. Unfortunately, he was deceased, which is a big, giant bummer. Wilmer was a native of the Northern Neck region of Virginia. For a while, he had worked on the water harvesting clams and oysters. Later, he operated a tree service business. He was known locally for hunting and belonged to a hunting club. Investigators also noted his presence near multiple crime scenes and that he had a distinctive set of vehicles over the years. Wilmer had been considered a person of interest at various times at one point, but he passed an FBI polygraph, which, if you want to go back and listen to us talk about polygraphs, we did that on a previous episode and talked about how they're not so good. But Wilmer was never charged with the crimes during his lifetime. His DNA was also never entered into the federal CODIS system while he was alive because he had no qualifying convictions that would have required it. Wilmer died in December 2017 at age 63, never facing a courtroom for the murders that had haunted Virginia for decades. Following the 2024 announcement, investigators continued to re-examine other cold cases from that era. Later that year, regional authorities linked Wilmer through DNA to the 1989 murder of Teresa Howell and the 29-year-old woman who was murdered after leaving the nightclub. And in late 2025, Wilmer's DNA was connected to the 1988 murder of Lori Powell. She was the victim who had gotten in an argument with her boyfriend while they were in his car, and she got out and hoofed it out of there. In January 2026, FBI announced that Wilmer's DNA was also found at the murders of Kathy Thomas and Rebecca Dowski. Those were the first set of victims that we discussed. With these connections, law enforcement has now tied Wilmer to at least 6 murders and disappearances between 1986 and 1989. Families of the victims have expressed a complex mix of relief and sorrow. Of course, relief that the mystery is finally giving way to answers, sorrow that the man responsible will never stand trial, and that the full scope of his crimes may never be known. Yet, even with these breakthroughs, not every victim originally grouped under the Colonial Parkway murders has been conclusively linked to Wilmer. The disappearance of Keith Hall and Cassandra Haley remains unsolved in terms of definitive forensics evidence, so there's not, at this time, no way to say if he was involved in their disappearance or not. Plus, the murders of Daniel Lauer and Anna Marie Phelps, the last couple I mentioned, is also unsolved, but believed to be related to the Parkway murders due to the proximity and the circumstances. Some believe that Wilmer may have been responsible for other missing persons and murder cases from the area, but without DNA evidence to confirm the link, those questions will be unanswered. Some investigators also believe it's possible that Wilmer was not acting alone. They theorize that controlling 2 victims at the same time would require the presence of more than one perpetrator, which totally makes sense, because how does one person control? I mean, there's 2 victims in almost every one of these cases, but I guess if he had a weapon and they were scared enough, they would have obeyed, thinking that maybe he was going to, let them go. Wilmer had an older brother, Keith, but he died in 2025. He had been suspected of an unrelated murder. So there's law enforcement thinking, well, we thought he killed somebody else, so maybe he was involved with what his brother was doing. Investigators continue to pursue leads, examine evidence, and reach out for public assistance in the hopes that lost pieces of the decades-old puzzle may one day fall into place, and maybe more families will get some answers. But
yeah, that would be nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tragic for sure.
Yes, definitely. Well, do you have a chaser for us?
I do have a chaser. My chaser is a bonus cocktail that I found on Instagram recently and decided to make it, even though I was very skeptical. And it was the Guinness Old Fashioned. And I was skeptical because I don't like beer of any kind, let alone a dark beer like Guinness. But the people were describing it, and I had read other descriptions of that when you make essentially you make a simple syrup out of Guinness beer, and then that has like chocolatey notes and a slight coffee taste to it. And I was like, well, I like those things, so I'm going to try it. And I tried it, and it was freaking phenomenal. So you just take a Guinness beer, and I used a 350 ml bottle. Most of the directions I found were using the larger cans.
A 12-ounce bottle? Is that?
Essentially, yeah.
Why did you
But
say-
I
Is it
say it
12
as
ounces?
mil because the amount of sugar that you use is in grams equal to the amount of mils of the
okay.
bottle. So it's
Okay,
it was a
that makes
350 milliliter bottle of Guinness. And then I used 350 grams of sugar weighed out. I did a mixture of white and brown sugar. I simmered that on the stove over low heat for about 20 to 25 minutes until it started to thicken up. And then I let it cool completely. And then to make the old fashioned, you do 2 ounces of bourbon with half an ounce of the Guinness syrup, 3 dashes of cocoa or chocolate bitters, and 2 dashes of orange bitters. And you mix that all together and you pour it over ice, and it is freaking phenomenal.
I'll have to
And
take
if you
your word
don't
for
like
it.
beer-
I don't want to try it.
I don't like beer of any kind. You know that. And, shout out to Gina. She tried it with me. She also is not a big beer drinker and she loved it as well. So you don't have to be a beer connoisseur to want to drink
Does it taste
this.
like Guinness,
It's-
though?
No, it tastes literally, it just tastes like there's a little bit of a chocolate flavor and a little very, very mild hint of like a coffee, but it's not even so much coffee that you'd be like, oh, that's coffee. It's not like a cold brew or anything syrup.
It's just bitter.
I'll make some next time you come home. I will make some and you'll be like,
Okay.
oh no, doesn't taste like Guinness.
I'm very skeptical.
And people like Dad likes Guinness and he did not think it tasted like Guinness either.
Okay, I'll have to try it. I'm not making it for myself.
Open mind.
Okay.
Open mind. What's your chaser?
My chaser is a watch recommendation, and I don't think we've done it before, but if we have, sorry. But the show Barbecue Showdown on Netflix.
Oh.
I think the first season was hosted by Rutledge, but
Yes.
in the most recent season, I think it was still like 2 or 3 years ago. But they had 2 people that I really like that I didn't know they were on Barbecue Showdown. One is like a YouTube guy who he cooks like meals out like for cowboys. Like he's a real cowboy cook. Like he has a wagon that he brings out, and you might have seen him. Cowboy Kent, I think was his name. And there was another guy called the Egyptian Cowboy. Forget his normal name, but he lives in Austin, and he did there's an episode of Fuck That's Delicious with Action Bronson and Joe Rogan, and they go to his food truck. And that's where I first saw him, but he's Egyptian. He moved from Egypt to Texas after trying barbecue and was like, this is my life passion now. And he was on the show.
Could you imagine?
But he blends like Middle Eastern culture with Texas barbecue, and it sounds fucking delicious.
That does sound good. I think we need to go to Austin and find it.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
There's a lot of barbecue places in Austin that I want to try.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
we should just do a trip to Austin to eat barbecue.
I'm 100% down with that.
Okay. We'll plan it.
Yeah. That show, it's a normal cooking show. Someone gets eliminated every episode and there's a winner at the end, but it's cool to like see barbecue cooking shows because barbecue's a completely different. It's a completely different animal from most other cooking.
I have a hard time with like especially old school barbecue because I need consistency. So like if you're doing coals or briquettes or something along those lines, I have a really hard time getting like the hot part and the cooler part and then not ruining what I'm trying to cook. I need some consistency. Even solid heat that I know what's going to happen.
In the show they have
like
normal smokers and stuff, but there's people that take like random just metal objects and turn them into smokers somehow. Like
That's
like those metal
wild.
filing cabinets. I've seen multiple videos of people turning those into smokers. I'm like, how
Can't even.
how do you do that? Do you even think
My
of that
brain
idea?
does not work that way.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
It just doesn't.
All right. Well, I think that wraps up today's episode. Thanks for listening,
It does.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Love you, Mom.
Love you too, bud. Bye.
Hey, friends. Thank you for supporting our podcast. Please share our show with your brutal and bizarre friends. Give us a Boozy follow on your favorite podcast platform. If you're feeling extra generous, we'd appreciate a 5-star rating or review as well. But maybe do that sober so all the letters are in the right place.
You can find all our contact information in the show notes. We love hearing from you, and if you're interested in helping us stock the bar for our future Boozy episodes, you can find our Patreon link in the show notes as well.